Welcome to your first United States Constitution video. Throughout the course of this unit, we're going to be looking at the structure, function, and protections provided by the United States Constitution. So let's get started. Starting off today, I'm going to move myself a little bit so you can see everything. There we go. Starting off today, we're going to review the Articles of Confederation. Now, as you remember from our last unit, the Articles of Confederation was the first attempt at self-government in the United States. Now, why did the Articles not work? Well, they really didn't provide a strong system or a strong central government that the new states needed after we fought the Revolutionary War and separated from Great Britain. So let's talk about some of those weaknesses that the Articles had. So first of all, the Articles of Confederation created a confederal system of government. And if you can remember back to when we looked at the three systems of government, a confederal system is a loose union of independent states. So the United States itself was a loose union of independent states. The state of South Carolina had just as much sovereignty as the state of North Carolina did, okay? The federal government, the big thing that really kind of sent the Articles of Confederation into a tailspin was the fact that the federal government had no power to tax. So since they couldn't tax the people, they had no way of generating revenue. They could ask the states to send money to the federal government, but the states didn't have to do that. So whenever it came time to pay bills or pay pensions of Revolutionary War soldiers, the federal government didn't have any money, okay? So the big weakness of the Articles was that they couldn't tax. Other weaknesses included the fact that there was no executive branch, so there was no one to enforce the laws that Congress passed. There was also no judicial branch, as we know it today, that could interpret the laws and apply them. So really, it was just too weak of a government for our new United States. However, there were some good things that came out of the Articles of Confederation. First of all, it allowed us to make a peace treaty with Great Britain to end the Revolutionary War, which was a good thing. It also established what we know as the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. And the Northwest Ordinance basically allowed the United States to, as we acquired new territory, especially in the West, which today would be like Ohio and Pennsylvania. But anyway, that we would be able to survey that land and then divide it into territories that would then in turn become states. So it was basically allowing us to expand territorially as a nation, which is pretty cool. So the Annapolis Convention. The Annapolis Convention was held in Annapolis, Maryland, not Annapolis in Missouri. I get that question every year. Anyway, the Annapolis Convention was convened by a few founding fathers because they wanted to get together to discuss issues of interstate commerce. So interstate commerce, commerce that happens between the states. So for example, when I traveled from Missouri to Florida this summer, I was spending money across state lines, right? Interstate commerce. The federal government under the Articles had no authority to regulate that either. So things like trading between the states was pretty difficult. Each state had its own currency. So imagine if you would have to convert your Missouri dollars to Illinois dollars every time you went to Illinois. It'd be kind of crazy. And it's probably going to reduce and deter interstate trading. Things went so well at the Annapolis Convention that the founding fathers were like, you know what? Probably ought to try to meet again. And they decided to meet the following summer in Philadelphia to revise the Articles. That was the sole purpose of meeting, was just to revise the Articles of Confederation because some things weren't working. But we know that's not how it went. Why? Because we don't have the Articles today. So it wasn't very long into the Constitutional Convention when our founding fathers were like, you know what, it's just time to scrap this thing, toss it out the window, and we're just going to start again. So there were many plans that were brought to the Constitutional Convention. The first one that we want to look at is the Virginia Plan. The Virginia Plan was proposed by a guy named James Madison. And James Madison said that we should have a bicameral legislature. So bicameral means two houses, and that each house was going to be represented by the states based on the population of those states, okay? So bicameral legislature, representation based on population. So the bigger states you had, the more people you would have in Congress and the more say you would have then in what was going on in the United States. Next, we have the New Jersey Plan. This was proposed by a guy named William Patterson, and it called for a unicameral legislature with equal representation. So it doesn't matter how many people you have living in your state. Everybody gets the same amount of representation. And as was the theme of the Constitutional Convention, we have what's known as the Great Compromise, also known as the Connecticut Compromise. And this called for a bicameral legislature with representation in one house being based on population and representation in the other house being being equal, okay? So that's what we have today is the Connecticut Compromise. The House is based on population, the Senate is equal. And the last compromise that we're going to look at here is the 3/5 compromise, which you guys all probably know was based on, was dealing with slavery. So the South was able to count, well, all states were able to count 3/5 of their slaves for representation purposes. And I'm going to stop there with this video. If you have any questions, let me know.